you really need to learn the fundamentals of marketing and how to apply them in this new day and age. Because I think what you said is like, people are sick of feeling like they're being sold to all the time. And I think
Mhm.
that's because predominantly what a lot of people are doing is they're announcing their offers instead of actually marketing them.
Welcome to the Bold Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Kinal, and this is a space where bold moves meet inspired action. Join us as we dive into stories, strategies, and mindset of those who are building their dreams, creating impactful communities, and redefining success on their terms. Whether you're looking for practical business tips, a boost of inspiration, or a community that gets your vision, you are in the right place. Get ready to elevate your journey and embrace what it means to be a bold founder. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Bold Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Kinal, and today we have an incredible guest who is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to branding, marketing, and building a sought-after business. Jodie Brown is a former hairstylist of 15 years turned marketing strategist for creative hair and beauty entrepreneurs and educators. She helps industry professionals build iconic brands, create reputations that magnetize opportunities, craft content that converts, and sell out offers with ease. Jodie runs a content marketing agency, hosts retreats, and teaches experts on how to turn their knowledge into sought-after brands. Jodie, I am so excited to have you here and have conversation on this because as like somebody who's in the content creating industry, I just love that you have so much to offer this, even though you focus specifically on like the beauty industry and marketing strategies for them. I think that is like social media strategies are applicable across the board for multiple entrepreneurs. And so I cannot wait to like dive into this with you.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you. It's always extra fun when you get to talk to other people who are in the same space. I feel like we get to nerd out a little bit, and
A little bit.
there's always some really great takeaways. So thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I'm really excited to be here today.
Me too. Okay, so let's dive into a little bit of your journey just so everyone can kind of get an idea of who you are. So how did you go from being like a hairstylist and into the marketing strategist world?
So I'll cut a long story like really, really as short as possible. I say short. I'll try to make it as short as I can. I was in the hair industry since I was like 17. My mom was a salon owner. We didn't work together until I was in my 20s, but I went to hair school right out of high school. So I graduated at 17, went straight into it. So I was doing hair for a really long time. And then I kind of stepped not out of the industry completely, but I worked in sales for a distributor for, I'd say it was probably a couple years that I was working in sales. And then I got pregnant with my son. And so there was a lot of like being on the road and a lot of travel. And I was like, oh, like I just don't think this is going to work with a newborn. My husband worked out of town as well. So I decided after I actually got approached by someone that I used to work with that had opened a salon to ask if I would come back to work behind the chair. And so I was out of the city that I worked in for about 5 years. Like, so I didn't have any clientele at all to go back to. And with it being my first child, before I'd never had to worry about like daycare or any of those things when building a clientele. And so when I went back to work, I was like, it was in a brand new area and like the area was still under construction. So there was no walk-in traffic, like none of the things that I had relied on when I had built my clientele in the past. And I was like, I need to build quickly. So I got really, really obsessed with marketing and marketing podcasts. And even though I was technically an employee at the time, I really felt like it was like I needed to do this because I wasn't going to get the clientele built for me in this particular salon that I was at. So there wasn't even a hair specific podcast at the time. This was kind of in the infancy. So like 2015, Instagram had been around, but it wasn't commonly used for building businesses necessarily at that time. It
Mhm.
was very much like, Valencia filtered photos of our coffees and stuff like that. And so I started listening to like the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast and Gold Digger and Being
Yes.
Boss and like all of these incredible like podcasts that had nothing to do with my industry. But I learned so much. And along the way, I feel like I was introduced to the world of entrepreneurship. And so that kind of planted that seed a little bit. And I realized really quickly that social media was something I was really good at. So with less than 1,000 followers, I ended up building out my clientele to the point where I was able to go independent and, become self-employed, I think within 18 months of
Oh,
coming
amazing.
back. Yeah, it was really, really, really quick. And so I did that for a couple years. I started kind of becoming the go-to, for my friends. I knew a lot of stylists. I worked for like a freelance bridal company for a while. So there was like I met a lot of people there. I was working with other independent stylists. And, I started realizing like, this is not that easy for everyone, right? But I was like, you know what? There's tons of people who teach social media and da 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 da. Da, and it just never really clicked for me that there was this gap still in the industry until fast forward to, I think it was like February of 2020. And this educator that I had worked with before sent me a message on Instagram, was like, hey, I'm hosting a class in Edmonton. Do you want to come? Like, I'll comp your ticket, just come hang out. It would be really great to meet you in person. Da da da. Da. So I go to this class and it was amazing. It was about like nothing to do with social, but in the Q&A section, there was like a couple stylists who were chit-chatting about like Instagram and how they were just like not into it. And then one of the stylists asked a question and was like, what do we do on Instagram? Like, I want to grow my following. I want to do this so I can attract clients and blah, 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 blah. And it was like one of those moments where it felt like, like when you look back and it felt like it was happening in slow-mo, but like really it wasn't. And it was just like this realization because the rest of the class basically erupted. All of these stylists were like so resentful and like they were like, it's not fair that we have to do this. It's like expected of us now. And like, I don't know how to get good results. Like I'm posting and I'm not getting clients and like all of these different things. And so it was at that moment that it clicked for me like, yes, there's people who are teaching Instagram, and yet there's so many people who still feel lost and still feel like they don't know how to leverage this amazing tool. Cause like I started in the industry when I was 17 and I had to go hand out business cards at the mall, and that was not fun. So
Yeah.
like, to me, I was just so excited that there was this tool. And so the wheel started turning about how I could bridge that gap and maybe start to help my industry in that way. Um, and then 2 weeks later, the world shut down. And I basically, got out of the salon for, a couple weeks. I was thinking things through and I was like, I'm not going back. Had a full clientele. I had a full business, like, and I handed in my notice at the salon that I was renting at. And I just decided to go all in on becoming a social media manager. So I retrained as a social media manager, and then I was doing some mentoring and like all of these different things to go full time into education and marketing.
Oh my gosh. I feel like our stories are so similar.
Yeah,
Like,
it sounds like it.
yeah, so I love there's a couple things I wanted to touch on that you like went through. One, I love that you designed, like you basically like you had your child and you just said, you know what? This isn't working for me anymore. I'm going to shift and see what works. Like and try things out and see like just trial and error, right? I feel like it's to me, I always say it's like designing your business, right? So you get to decide what your business looks like, how it's run. And so that was kind of your beginning steps of that. But I also love how you like talked about how you were in sales before and how that kind of wove in the love for the podcasting. I loved and like binged all the podcasts, all the ones you even said. Yeah.
Right.
And so that gives you so much information that is really powerful. And then if you start utilizing that and seeing how you're growing success, it's amazing that you said, you know what, this is like something that I'm loving. And a lot of people are struggling with it. And even like now, social media has been around for a long time. And yet some people still just really don't like it or don't get it. But you're right. It is so powerful because I was like you. I started way like forever ago where yeah, it was business cards and you're going like you're cold calling on potential companies that you could work with. And having this as an opportunity to have them like on their phone, like, hey, here's me promoting what I'm doing and telling you why you should work with me on your phone is an incredible tool that we should really take advantage of. And yeah, it can be a little bit intimidating and hard, but baby steps, right?
So true. And I love that you mentioned that because I think a lot of the time when people think about leveraging social media, they think about like going viral or like,
Mhm.
becoming a full-time content creator. And what you just underlined is something that is so important. And at the basis, you can do with any follower count is
Yes.
just connecting with other people. And I love what you said about designing your life too, because I reflect back on so many moments that have happened since then where it's like sometimes you just have to make a decision and you just have to be like, this is what I want. Let me build it. Let me try and, make something happen for myself because I think it's so easy to be passive in life. And, one of the things that I really had the realization of, just before the shutdown happened is like if I want things to happen, like I'm the only one who's going to make them happen, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And even with that shutdown, like I always said that my biggest fear was failure. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to do try something and then have it completely fail. Well, with that shutdown, it basically was like it kind of was like a failure moment, not like by me, but like everything that I was worried about happening was basically what happened because it all got taken away, which is probably what you would have experienced in the hair industry because people couldn't come see
100%.
you, right? So
Yeah.
you just have to rebuild. And at that point, you're like, you know what? I got nothing anyway. So let's rebuild the way I want to.
Yes, it's so true. And I feel like we have this conversation like so often as like entrepreneurs about, the security of employment versus the risk of being an entrepreneur. And I think what happened in 2020 is that like first of all, like that statement, like, I
Yes.
feel like it's out of our control, you know what I mean? And I think 2020 was kind of that reminder that like nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is 100% secure ever. And so,
Yeah.
like, like, having that control over your life and having, different things that we can explore and maybe different income streams and all those things, I feel like it really was highlighted to us, like, how important it is to design your life. Because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, you can go along with the status quo for as long as you want, but it can change at any second.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that has really opened my eyes to like diversifying your income, having multiple income streams, really just trying things. We'll just
Yeah.
put it out there, see if there's a reaction to it. If there is, then like run with it, see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, who cares? I mean, like I said, you
Exactly.
were already at rock bottom when you had nothing going on anymore because the
Yeah.
world was shut down. So what's holding you back?
That's so true. And I think it's so funny because, like, whenever I think back, like, I think, okay, this is my first, starting education. I mean, now I have the agency and the retreat company and like all these different things, but like, starting my education business outside of being a stylist was my first foray into like being a business owner. But then I actually look back and I'm like, no, actually, in like 2018, I have a business license from when I was going to start a candle company and like, all of these
Yeah.
different things that you try. And so I think it's so true when you say that like fear of failure affects so many of us, but I think we'd probably be hard pressed to find an entrepreneur who found success in their very first foray
Yeah.
into business. Like I mean, I'm sure there are some, but I think more often than not, that's not the case.
Yeah. And I think that every like so-called failure is actually just a little pivot and a shift into a better direction for you. But you had to go through that struggle to understand that maybe you
100%.
needed to pivot or this wasn't meant for you or there was something better that you didn't even know existed.
Yes. Yes, and that has absolutely been the case for me. Like, so
Mhm.
for those podcasts that we talked about too, for me, it wasn't even just the marketing knowledge that I gained. It was also the window into a different lifestyle and like a
Yeah.
window into what's possible, right? And so,
Yeah.
when I got invited to this class, like yes, there was the piece of like figuring out, okay, people need this. And then there was also the piece of like, this person I met through buying her digital course and taking her digital course and implementing it. And so up until then, I wasn't even aware that like creating digital courses was a thing. And so I do think there's like along the way, all of these little moments that if you like open your eyes and you like pay attention and you let things come to you a little bit, yes, there's planning, but there's also like a little bit of reacting to what's going on and figuring out, okay, is this the next best step? Because my business today looks completely different than it did when I first started it.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love this conversation. It's so good. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the branding aspect. So,
Yeah.
a lot of entrepreneurs I do find struggle a little bit with the branding. And I know branding can shift and change as your business grows, but what does it really mean to build an iconic brand? I love the word iconic brand.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I always talk about with my clients is, and this is kind of where we start in every single one of my programs, when I onboard agency clients, when we do retreats, we always start with like, what is the change that you want to see in your industry? Like, what do you stand for? What is like the hill that you will die on, for example? And because a lot of the time when we hear like be disruptive or be iconic, like we think it just means going on Instagram and like, wearing a blazer and a bikini top and like yelling about things and like, that kind of vibe. Like I think a lot of people really think that that's the only way to stand out online is
Yeah.
to be disruptive in the traditional typical sense that we see a lot of.
Yeah.
And I think really what it comes down to is so often my clients, because they're geniuses, like they're visionaries, and they start their businesses. And this is probably the case for anyone listening to a podcast called The Bold Entrepreneur. They start their businesses because the status quo isn't working for them, right? Like they
Yeah.
see something that they want to create a change in. And when it comes to building an iconic brand, repetition is always going to equal reputation. And it is so important that you have a message that you stand behind so strongly that you can talk about it in 100 different ways and you can talk about it over and over and over again. Because if you're not sick of what you're saying, like if you don't feel like you're repeating yourself, there's a solid chance your audience has no idea what you stand for. So I think that's
Yeah.
like the biggest piece is it's so grounded in messaging, in the impact that you want to create. And then also when it comes to any business, essentially the question is like, what problem do you solve? Every business is going to solve a problem. Like whether you're a motivational speaker and you are helping people to find that self belief so that they can make moves in their life, whether you are a social media manager or a marketing agency owner who is giving visionary business owners back their time so that they can do the things that only they can do, whether you are a hairstylist who is, fixing people's who is improving people's self-esteem, that is you're
Yeah.
essentially you're solving a problem, right? So if you can identify those kind of two key things, um and then of course we want to weave in like your authority, so why are you uniquely qualified to make this impact and to solve this problem? That is really like the foundation, I think, of a really strong, iconic, disruptive brand.
Yeah. I agree entirely. And I think that sometimes entrepreneurs will they want to do this, but then putting a pin in exactly what their message is hard for them because they're so involved in their business. So it's nice to have an outside voice looking in at someone's business and you can help them see what their messaging is. I think that's important.
I agree. And I think that's something that like it's important to underline too, because I think a lot of people will get to this part and they'll either like skate past it because it is hard, or they'll be like, I have trouble articulating this. So therefore,
Mhm.
like maybe I'm not, maybe I don't have an iconic brand, right? But I think it's what you said is right. It's really hard when you're so close to it. You almost
Yeah.
like can't see the label from inside the bottle. And
Yeah.
so if you do struggle with pinpointing those things, but you're someone who like you're getting your clients results, you know that you're good at what you do,
Yeah.
it often is an outside perspective that can really change everything.
Yeah. And I also really liked how you mentioned like having that something that you love to talk about and be able to talk about it multiple different ways. Because a lot of people, they think, well, I've already posted that on social media. Like, no, it doesn't. Just because you posted it once, that doesn't mean that your whole audience got to see it. And sometimes, like, I'm a person who wants to see like all the different reasons why I should work with you before I sign on with you, right? So
Yes.
I want you to tell me, like, what am I going to get out of it? What's the logistics of it? Like, how many times are we going to be meeting? What are some of the people that have taken your program before? What is their testimonials?
Exactly.
Like, I want to know all the information. So just think about that when you're telling clients about what you do. That is part of building your iconic brand. And it's something you love talking about. Like, I could talk events and I could talk social media forever. Right.
Totally.
And so that really tells me that those are the things that I love to talk about. But I probably have so many things that we can discuss on just those topics. Right.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's that passion, and I feel like when you are doing it from a place of, like wanting to create that change and being really passionate about something, I think it's so much easier to navigate the inevitable hurdles and drawbacks and
Yes.
like all the stuff that won't work out and the things that
Mhm.
will fall through, and maybe, the clients that aren't, don't follow through on things. Like everyone has things that come up in business. And I feel like if you're really strongly rooted to that brand and those particular brand foundations, it really does help you focus in on like why you're doing what you do and get past those things a little bit more
Yeah.
easily.
Okay. So since we're talking about like the messaging part, what is like something that people, so if you have an entrepreneur who's creating their content, how can they can create intentional content marketing that really like helps them grow their business?
I love
Like
that
how
question.
can they apply that for themselves?
So I always like to kind of teach a framework. So in my programs and in my retreat and everything, we call it the align and attract framework because that's essentially what it's designed to do. And so I always like to weave in, like you said, about how we talked about those different like things that you want to see before working with someone. I want
Mhm.
people to really bring that
Yeah.
into their content, right? So we're storytelling, we are weaving, we're looking at things through different areas. So for example, the three categories that I like really like to speak on, and I will educate on these things, I'll share insights on these things. Like I approach these three things from different angles all the time, but they're always consistent, is the building a brand, and that's like the how to build a brand, the why to build a brand. So like when we think about branding, it's like, okay, I can only say so much about that. I literally could talk about branding probably for the next like 3 months and not get sick of it like every day. So I think
Yeah.
you need to find that thing for yourself. And then like conquering the fear of being seen. That's another really big one that I go in on because I
Yes.
think that's one of the biggest things holding, creative entrepreneurs back is like,
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like I'm bragging, or, I'm worried what people will think about me, and, all of the perfectly natural feelings that we all have. Um, but we need to fight through in order to, create the impact that we're here to create. And
Yeah.
then more tactical information. So like content creation, marketing, content marketing rather, and social media. So those are kind of the three, I call them areas of impact that I really want to make my mark on. And then, as well, in the framework, we have like specific visibility content. So we want to make sure, because a lot of people begin and end with visibility content, right? It's a piece
Yeah.
of the puzzle, but that can't be your whole content strategy. And then, social proof. So that can be media, that can be testimonials, that can be case studies. I do think the way that we present case studies and testimonials like needs to evolve a little bit. So I love to see like a little bit of storytelling there, or interviews, or things like that. And then that founder content. So like the stories, and stories in a sense of like it's like you're telling parts of your story and parts of your past client stories to make sure it's to inspire your audience and show them what's possible. So the reason storytelling is so important is I think a lot of the time we think in order to get people to want to work with us, or in order to, I don't believe in convincing energy at all. I feel like it's not something we
Me
need to
too.
do, but I'm gonna use the word convince because I think that's what a lot of people can resonate with. Like, how do I convince
Yeah.
people to work with me? We need to it's not so much about showing them just that we are capable, it's about showing them that they are capable. And
Yes.
so, when you tell stories and your audience can see like where you came from and where you went to and like those little nuances, I think it helps humanize the whole idea of success a little bit. Because what enters most people's heads, even subconsciously, is like, oh, well, it's easy for her because she has this, or oh, it's
Mhm.
easy for her because she has this or this or this.
Yeah.
So you can showcase a little bit of that, like, okay, what did I do to get here? What was the transformation? Then if they can start to see themselves in your story and in your brand, it starts to build that little bit of self-belief. And that makes people move. That's what makes people
Yeah.
believe in themselves.
That is like, that's really the reason that I have this podcast is because I love to be able to share the story behind women entrepreneurs. Because, yeah, we can see where they are on social media and it looks amazing. You're like, oh, I could never do that because it's not relatable. But when you get to tell the story of like the successes, but also the failures and the pivots and the hard times,
Yeah.
people can be like, oh, I went through that and I could do that. Or like they can envision themselves in your story and then they can see the transformation for themselves. It's so powerful.
It's huge, and I think that's where a conversation I've been hearing a lot in our space recently, which I think is really, really big, is trust gap, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that the storytelling piece is what helps bridge that because it's so much easier now to create mediocre content at scale, with the advent of all these different tools that we have. And don't get me wrong, like I use AI to help me facilitate
Yeah.
things and get faster. But I do think that there's like a lot of, content that is created that doesn't have a lot of soul to it. And so there's it's created like a hunger for more story, more
Yeah.
human touch, more nuance and like specificity and all of these things that we're not getting from AI. So
Yeah.
I do think that there's a big opportunity right now for people when it comes to building a brand to go there and to go deeper and to really like make that impact and become an iconic leader in your community.
Well, I think the buyers have gotten more savvy now, right? Like they are seeing and feeling when something just doesn't feel quite right or if it feels
Right.
too salesy on social media and they're like, I'm not interested.
Yep.
But what they are loving is hearing how things developed for you, how you overcame the challenges, and how what you're doing now has really helped you and your clients grow. Like it really honestly is, like you said, it's about that story, it's about that transformation and that feeling. People are working with people because of who they are,
Yeah.
not because of what they put out or because they like have so many ads that hit so many target people. Like they're
Totally.
not going after people for that. They're going after them because of who they are and what they can create for the person who potentially is buying.
Absolutely. It's like people are buying the result for them and they're buying into you and they're buying into like
Yeah.
what's possible for them. And I honestly think that this is like with the social media kind of or sorry, with like the online business boom in 2020, I think what happened is people were getting okay results from learning how to announce their programs versus marketing their programs. And
Yes.
the market has just become so much more sophisticated now that you really need to get like and this is like a non-negotiable in terms of creating success as a whether you're an educator whatever you do is you need to communicate like the transformation but also why does it matter for your people
Mhm.
like you really need to learn the fundamentals of marketing and how to apply them in this new day and age. Because I think what you said is like, people are sick of feeling like they're being sold to all the time. And I think
Mhm.
that's because predominantly what a lot of people are doing is they're announcing their offers instead of actually marketing them.
Yeah.
And not that you can't do both. I think there's a little bit of room. Like we do need to be selling our products because we're business owners, but it's like there's like a very different way of doing it now that works a lot better.
Yeah. And I do think that because everything has moved online, and I think the way people are using social media, it has gotten harder and easier. I mean, you've got the algorithm, which makes it a little bit harder, but
Yeah.
then it is so much more like real versus curated content, right? So you
Mhm.
can pop on and show some of the behind the scenes in like your messy office or whatever, but people aren't, they don't care if your office is messy, but they want to see the sneak peek of like the cool thing that you're going to have at your retreat or your conference that you're like it's a special like little look into what you do behind the scenes. Like those are the easier, more raw things that people want to see now, and that is really working. So it got harder in terms of like dealing with algorithm and stuff like that, but it also got so much easier because now you don't need to have everything be perfect.
Totally, and I think there's just so many different ways to create content that's working so well for different people. Like, and I think that's another thing that's like, I'm sure this is your experience too, because like
Yes.
every other agency owner, but like I publish like thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of content across like dozens and dozens of different accounts. And
Yes.
there isn't actually like I find one silver bullet thing that works for everyone. Like every
This
audience.
yes, this makes me so happy that you said it because I've been feeling it, and like you look on social media, and if you're not in this industry, you wouldn't know. But if you look on social media and you see all these social media experts and they're like, this is what you have to do. You have to create this many reels a week, this many reels a day. You
Yeah.
need to do this, this, this. And I'm like, it doesn't really work that way. Like, it really depends on your audience and what your product is and what your business is that you're marketing and how
Yeah.
your audience is like taking that in. Like, are they liking more video? Maybe they're liking carousels. Maybe they're liking a mix. Is your face on it? Like, that's huge. So I
Absolutely.
love that you said this.
It's what they respond to. Like, I have
Mhm.
clients where, like, some of their most, some of their best content, like, for some and that's again where it comes back to branding. Like, we talked about that, like, the messaging piece of branding, but I do think there's also that visual communication piece. So, if you are a brand who is I do still think it's important to have some founder content and some behind the scenes content, so I'm gonna,
Yeah.
like, preface that a little bit, whether
Yes.
it's in your stories or whatever, but, like, for some brands and for some, people, they're that like cinematic style, like immersive, like beautifully created content kills it. For some
Yeah.
people, that would totally flop because it's not authentic to them. And they're more like pulling up. Like, I have a client who, in one of my programs, where she's like, all I want to do is face to camera content. And she kills it. Like, she just pops up her camera, talks
Yeah.
about something she's passionate about, and like it works so well for her. So I think we need to like embrace it and bring a little bit of I don't know about you, but I'm like really ready for this to bring the creativity back to marketing.
Yeah.
Because I think we're so into this like, and of course there's like formulas and SOPs and systems that we want to be using to optimize all of our efforts. But also, the way that I think about it is I'm like, okay, perfect. I can take some of that admin stuff off my plate so I can use more of my brain power to like get really creative and think of cool new ideas and different things I can do. Which I think like if we can get a little bit more experimental in our mindsets when it comes to marketing, it also takes the pressure off of every single post having to like go viral or I'm going to use the term do well because a lot of people I say are like, oh,
Yeah.
this post didn't do well, but they're only measuring one metric.
Yeah. The numbers or like
Yeah,
comments. Yeah.
exactly. And like
Yeah.
I had a post, I think it was a couple weeks ago. Like I put up two posts in one week. One of them reached tons and tons and tons of people, got tons of likes and tons of shares. One of them reached like a tenth, got barely any interaction, and I got three DMs asking me about my program.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
from
So
that specific post. Yeah.
sometimes you look at the numbers and you're like, this doesn't look right. But then they're not seeing the behind the scenes of the DMs that are like, hey, this really resonated with me. I'm not willing to put it out for the world to see,
Right.
but I do want to hear from you personally. And that is way more impact than a comment could ever be or a
So
view,
much
right?
so.
Like, yeah, you getting them in your DMs and getting that like personal conversation and them asking what like about themselves, about how your program is going to help them is way more impactful
I
than
totally
any
agree.
number.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. And there's so many of these like little, nuances when it comes to social that I think it's like we need to get really inquisitive about like what is working mean for me? Like, does
Yeah.
working actually mean getting a ton of reach? Does working actually mean getting clients? Does it mean getting listeners for my podcast? Does it mean building my email list? Like, once you have those goals and you can kind of create a content strategy to help you establish those goals, like, it's also about when people come to your social media, because when you meet someone in at a, an event, or someone refers you or whatever, often it's not like, oh, here's their phone number, text them and connect. It's like, here's their Instagram. So
Yeah.
you also want to think about, it's not just about using it for visibility, it's also using it to build your brand. So when people come to your Instagram page, can they see what you're about, what you believe in, what you stand for? Like, that's what's important.
Yeah, I always say that your Instagram like profile and your grid, that is your portfolio. Like
Yes.
people are gonna come and in 3 seconds they're gonna be like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
and swipe off. Or they're gonna be like, oh, this looks cool and this looks cool. And they're gonna dive in. And that's when like the rabbit hole of them falling in love with you happens. But
So
you
true.
have to be able to set your profile up to like intrigue them and really say, like you said, what do you do? How can you help them? It just like sets the tone as to if they're gonna move forward, even just
Absolutely.
following you or not.
And I think like the third thing in there is like, why does it matter? I think
Mhm.
that's the biggest like additional layer in 2025. I'm not sure if you agree, like if you've noticed that too, but I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is we really need to spell out like, who are you? What do you
Mhm.
do? And why does it matter to me? And if you can
Mhm.
answer those three questions, I feel like you are so, so far ahead of most people who are using social media for their businesses.
Yeah. Okay, so if we take a step off of social media, what is something that you recommend to entrepreneurs to focus on outside platforms? So, like, this could be email, this could be like anything that is outside, even
Yeah.
in person events. We'll get into retreats later, but what do you think that they should be doing?
I always recommend like a trifecta for my clients because I do think it's important I think it's really important to have an email list. And the reason for that is because you don't own your social media
Mhm.
platforms and things can happen at any time.
Yeah.
So I always recommend for my clients and my students, like, have use your social media at least once a week. Make sure you are directing people off platform to opt into a freebie or sign up for your newsletter or any of those types of things.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing is like, people will pay for list building ads, right? Which can be really, really helpful sometimes. But it's like, make sure you're also signed up for ManyChat so that you can make sure that when it makes sense to lead
Yes.
people to one of your resources or free resources, you are hand delivering them that asset. I think that's so, so
Yes.
vital. Um, so I think email definitely is one of the things that I would recommend. And then also, I do think I love a long form content channel for my like educator, thought leader clients because, and that can be a podcast, it can be YouTube. YouTube's awesome for discoverability. It can even be a blog because I think that when I go to hire a coach, the first thing I want to do is I want a greater depth of understanding of their approach, of
Yeah.
what their beliefs are. Like, what do we align on certain things? Are they going to push me out of my comfort zone? Are they going to help me grow? Like, do they have a skill set that will help me grow? And so I think you can more easily showcase mastery through long form content.
I
So
agree.
yeah, I love a podcast. That's like my favorite thing. Podcasts are great. They're definitely in the nurture part of your thing. Yes, you can get discovered, especially if you have a niche podcast. Like, I had a hairstylist specific podcast that grew extremely quickly to like 10,000 downloads a month.
That's
Because
amazing.
it was early on in like,
Yes.
and it was great and I had a lot of guests and like all of those types of things. But traditionally speaking, hair like podcasts are not the best for discoverability necessarily, but they're really, really good for nurturing your
Yes. Yeah.
community and building that relationship. So and then blogging too. Blogging is great for SEO. They all have great, different, they'll have great kind of things about them, but The other thing too that I'll mention about podcasting is it is such a good relationship building tool.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
if
I
you're
agree.
inviting guests on, yeah, it's huge for that too. And also like, you know, there is that reciprocity. But those are kind of the two outside of social media like platforms that I would recommend. But I don't also think you can overstate the importance of like, especially if you're in the beginning and you've got more time to invest than money, be generous with your expertise and put it like do as many collaborations as possible. Build as many relationships as possible. Like when I first started, I was going into other people's memberships, I was going on podcasts, like and I do think that is one of the biggest things that allowed me to get traction as quickly as I did. I was very specific on my niche and what I did for people and why it mattered, and I was very intentional about leading with a lot of generosity when it came to my knowledge and building a lot of visibility that way.
Yeah, and the collaboration piece I think is so powerful. I also don't know that it is being like utilized as much as it should be nowadays. I think we've moved so much on social that we don't really take advantage of in-person collaborations, but even social collaborations. Like it's so amazing to be able to say, here's my audience, here's your audience. We have similar audiences and demographics, but why not like collab so that they can see each other and we can like grow like our businesses by utilizing more of a space of people that can see our stuff.
I agree. And I think
Mhm,
this applies for every industry, honestly. Like,
mhm. Yeah.
actually, my business partner, I have a business partner in my retreat company. And her and I met because back when I was using social media to grow my behind the chair business, she's a photographer. I reached out to her to collab on, I think it was an International Women's Day giveaway. And so we reached out to, actually, it's so funny now that I think about it. When I think of that giveaway, our last retreat, the other person that we partnered with actually came on the retreat as well.
Yeah.
So like everyone ended up being a part of it, but that's how we met. That is how we connected. She's now one of like my best friends and we have this business together and it all started from a collaboration on social. So not only can you grow your business, but it's also a really cool way of like, you know, sometimes you meet people and you just click and you connect and you get to like grow your community and your network full of like-minded people. And like
Yes.
now, whenever anyone's looking for a photographer, who do you think I recommend? Like it's a
Yeah.
no-brainer because I trust her and I know her.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I hope people are taking notes and thinking about who they can collaborate with right now because I agree. It's been a game changer for me and how I've grown my business and who I've started to really work with more often. Like you can become loyal with them because you just fall in love with who they are and what they offer. And you're like, okay, I trust you with my clients. Like I'm definitely going to be referring you.
Yeah, and that's such a huge thing, right? Because when you refer someone, like I don't know about you, but when I said a referral, like I feel responsible for that referral.
Mhm.
So I only partner with, and this is even like with partnering with people in general. Like I've done some like joint venture webinars and things like that where I'm promoting other people's programs, but I only do that with people that I know like
Oh,
really
for
well.
sure. For sure. Because if you don't do that, like if you do that with someone that you're like, oh, whatever, I can make some money off of this, and it's not like a really strong bond to that person, like you've used the product yourself or
Mhm.
like you really love what they do, it shows. It shows in your marketing, it shows in how to show up. And then if someone actually goes and buys it and has a terrible experience, now do you think they're gonna trust what you have to say?
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
Okay, so let's go on to the retreat side. I'm really like intrigued by this. So, how did you start hosting them and what kind of impact have they had on your business?
Oh my goodness.
It was
I'm
a
like,
loaded question.
how can I say this? And because they literally, the first retreat I ever hosted completely changed my business model. So I'll go into that a
Oh,
little bit.
okay.
But okay, so how it started, I've wanted to go to Italy since I was like, I like forever and ever and
Mhm.
ever. And so I was there in 2022 with my family. We finally, after I started this online business, I built a team. I was like, I can take 2 full weeks off from my online business, which it's funny, that did not happen to be clear until 2022. I started in 2020.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I was able to like step away for 2 full weeks. And so we were traveling around Italy and my husband and my son had like gone out for the day to go fishing or something. And I
Yeah.
remember like sitting at my hotel in Lake Garda, which is like in the north, near Verona. And I was looking out of this like beautiful lake and I'm drinking my cappuccino and I'm reading The Big Leap. That was the book that I was reading at the time.
Yeah.
And I put it down and I just remember having this thought like, I have had more ideas and more inspiration stepping out of my day to day for this 2 weeks than I have in the past like 6 months. I
Yes.
need to bring this to my community. And I just started
Mhm.
like writing down notes and like all of these things about, some ideas for this retreat. And so a couple months later, I was going to Nicole's house. We hung out all day for coffee. And we were just like hanging out and chatting about the trip because she was about to go to Spain with her family. And as I was leaving, I was like, I just kind of like word vomited. I was like, I really want to host a retreat. Do you want to do it with me? Like, I think it would be such a great partnership because I
Yeah.
knew what my boundary, like, I knew what my capacity was. And also, I was like, Nicole's an expert brand photographer. She also has like a background in travel. Like, I feel as though this would be a really, really great partnership and we would balance each other out and be able to like fill each other's, kind of gaps in a way.
Yeah.
So she was like, "Oh my God, I love this." So I think I called her because I had to go get my son. So I think I called her and we were talking. And at the end of the conversation, I was like, you know what? I'm going to float this idea to a couple of my clients and see if they'd be in. I'm going to see if I can get some deposits and then we'll do it. Like if I can get four, like I think I said, if we can do 4 people, it's viable to like really plan this and really get it going.
Yeah.
Because another piece that I forgot to mention is like I had been looking for a specific kind of retreat for like a year at that point, and I there was a couple things that weren't hitting right for me with the available retreats. And so I sent out 5 DMs, and I think within 48 hours, I had two pay in fulls and 2 deposits. So we
Oh,
had our 4 people
or
just from my existing clients.
yeah.
And so that was how the retreat was born. And so when we went to Italy, like we just planned it so much. I think we ended up having 6 people total for our first one, and our max was 8 because we
Yeah.
really wanted them to be like very intimate. We rent a beautiful villa just outside of Rome.
Yeah.
That's where we host our retreats every October. And so we just really wanted to like do things differently. Like what are a lot of the complaints that we're hearing about retreats? Like too many people, not intimate enough, like, too many topics, not deep, or no real transformation. So we just kind of addressed all of those things. And I just had this vision and we brought it to life. And then when we went there, it was predominantly educators and salon leaders. I'd been working with other educators and other entrepreneurs since the very beginning of my business, actually, like in a done for you way, because I was able to create a lot of traction, a lot of success really quickly, and my peers noticed. And so agency actually grew very organically with people approaching me. And so up until that point, though, like I had that going on. I had programs for hairstylists specifically, and then we're introducing the retreat and all these things. And when I was there and I was teaching the curriculum, that like higher level curriculum for educators and leaders, I was like, this is where I want to be. Like it
Yeah.
really felt like the next evolution of my business. So when you were saying earlier, like we kind of have these things happen and we wouldn't know it was possible if it weren't for this thing and it kind of
Yeah.
builds. That was absolutely my experience. And so I closed down my hairstylist specific programs at the end of 2023, and basically started rebuilding the education side of my business and really going in on one-to-one mentoring for other educators. I now have a program called Sought After Educator, which is like a hybrid one-on-one consulting program. And so I've really reformulated my entire business because I just saw like how I can have my impact in my industry is helping other educators have their impact and create that like ripple effect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it really changed everything.
I love how you also really listened to that and weren't afraid to like almost burn down the hairstylist side and really focus on the educator's side. Because some
Yeah.
people are like, no, no, this is working. I don't want to, right?
Yeah.
But if there's something that's working better and you're excited for it,
Yes.
dive into it. Like I said, that whole pivot and shift of whatever you're guided towards is always
Yeah,
meant for you. It's just a matter of if you're
absolutely.
willing to go for it or not.
It's so true. And honestly, like I always want to be transparent about this because I think it's really important is I did have another income stream like with the agency, right? So I
Yeah.
did have that
Yes.
other thing to be able to like float through that. And I definitely I think it long-term goal 100% was dead on. Was the execution a little bit reactive in that moment? Potentially, yes. And I like to share that because I think it's like it's important because it wasn't like I burnt all the hairstylist stuff down and then the next day all my educator
Yes.
programs were full. Like no, I've restarted. We did have a sold out retreat coming up in April already. And I did have my agency clients and I had a couple one-to-one clients. So the business was still doing really well,
Yeah, you had that
but
safety net to play.
yes, exactly. So like when my clients are like, "Oh, like I just want to," I'm like, "Okay, yes, definitely long-term goal burn it down, but like I also feel like
Mhm.
there's a little bit of nuance that's important because sometimes it does take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And it did take a little bit of time to rebuild the education side with this new, and it wasn't
Yeah.
even a new audience, honestly, because I'd been working with these people like and educators the entire
Yeah.
time, but like bringing it to the forefront was a lot of work.
Yeah. And I think that if you like completely burn it all down, then you actually have like a little bit of an interior like panic of stress of having to get it out faster and is the messaging right and like that you want to make sure that it's coming out like nice and it feels good and it
Yeah,
feels like it's supposed to happen this way, not you're pushing it and rushing it because it needs to get out because there's a financial pressure on you. Right?
totally.
That will come across in your marketing even if you don't mean for it to, it will. So it needs to be
I
something that
agree.
like feels good the whole way through.
Yeah, you don't wanna come from a place of, like, that scarcity and,
Yeah.
because I think there's, like, 2 different energies at the beginning sometimes. It's like, in the beginning of my business altogether, I was just so pumped. I was so inspired, so excited, like, I was just
Yeah.
like, "Yes, yes, yes," like, foot on the gas, and then, once you mature in your business a little bit, I feel like yes, you have those, like, same fire to bring things forward, but, like, you also have a lot of other things on your plate, right?
Yes.
So I feel like it's different when you're, like, in the very beginning phases of business versus when you've, like, matured a little bit as an entrepreneur.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so you do have like your retreats are typically waitlisted, right? And so what are some of the key things that you have used or created that have helped you to create that level of demand?
The biggest thing is focusing all of our energy on making sure that the experience is absolutely top notch. A lot of our retreats, so we have a retreat coming up in October of 2025. And 5 of the 7 spots were sold out from existing attendees,
Yeah.
within, like, the presale, and then the rest of it sold out in I think it was a week or 2 after I don't even know if we actually opened the doors. I think it might have all been in the presale. I don't
That's
I'm yeah,
amazing
I don't
though.
know if we actually ever opened the doors. I don't think that we did.
Yeah.
We had 1 spot left actually, and it was in the presale still, and someone messaged me and was like, "Hey, please take down the sales page. I'm not at home right now. I don't have my credit card, but I really, 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 really wanna come." And I was like, "Okay, done."
That's
So that was
amazing.
yeah, and so that was really it. Number 1, we focus on one specific and measurable transformation. Number 2, we're very clear about what is included, and number 3, we make it a very intimate, like, retreat, and so that's like, a lot of people have been like, oh, have you thought about getting a bigger house and like, getting more people? And honestly, no. Like,
Yeah.
I would rather keep it at the quality it's at now and have that wait list. And obviously, like, we are ramping up to 2 retreats a year again in 2026.
Yeah.
These retreats are for creative entrepreneurs, and those in, like, the education space. So this doesn't necessarily like, we had someone who, is in the wellness space last time. So these are not necessarily for the beauty industry specifically, but they're very much for like leaders and educators and like, those types
Yeah.
of humans that want to come.
Yeah.
And so yeah, those are the biggest things. But if I had to pick one thing, it's experience, experience, experience. Like, it is so, so, so necessary.
Yeah.
Um, when you're host, and I'm sure like you host events and that's a big part of your business. So I'm
Oh,
sure this is
the best part
not
of it.
news to you,
No.
but
No, but it's hard for
yeah.
somebody who hasn't hosted an event or a retreat to like they need to walk through the event as their guest. Like, what is the
Yes.
guest experiencing from beginning to end? This could be a
Yeah.
workshop, this could be a conference, this could be a retreat. It's anything you're putting out there. How are you making them feel? And what are they
Yes.
walking away feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
experience is huge.
it is, and it's even like when I think about like the teams that we like put together for these events too, like we work with a like tour guide who is like, I love her. I met her when I was in Rome with my family, and she's just like so passionate and such a creative, and she's an entrepreneur, and like our chef is so passionate about what he does and
Yeah.
he's an entrepreneur, and like bringing all of that energy I think into
Yeah.
one space, like it truly is. Even like my assistant who came, she was like, just like the energy at these retreats, like just being in that room is like so transformative. And,
Yeah.
mixing the little bit of like we mix in that culture, like we take them to like a lakeside traditional like Italian town, and then we go into Rome and we do the tour
Mhm.
of all these like incredible things. And I feel like there's just this energy as creatives and as artists and as like visionary entrepreneurs that it's just like unmatched. I could talk about retreats all day. I think they're just so transformative.
That's amazing. Okay. So I wanted to do this. I ask this on every podcast that I do, but what is one piece of advice or a piece of information that you can leave with our audience that would support them?
Ooh, okay. This is good. I think one of my biggest pieces of advice would be to really trust yourself and be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, if you have a vision, I see so many people who they're like, "Oh, this is like harder than I expected," or, and they get like discouraged. And so what I wish someone would have told me actually at the beginning is like, just because there's a rough patch or there's something that's difficult doesn't mean it's not meant for you. If you have a vision and you are making an impact and you are helping people and your clients are getting results, like push through and figure out the way that you can make this work for you, because everyone's business is unique. Everyone has different things to offer. And so I think that's the biggest thing is like, just get really, really comfortable pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, because that's going to be necessary every single time you grow. And if you are not already on a personal development journey as an entrepreneur, like get on it because
You
you're
are
going to need
now.
it. Yeah.
Amazing. And where can people find you?
So the best place to find me is probably on Instagram. I'm very active there. So if you listen to this, I would love to hear from you and what you took away from it at It's Jodie Brown on Instagram. And I also do have a marketing podcast called The Visionary Rising. So we break down a lot of really tangible, like a couple of my favorites are the Aligned Sales series. So we go in depth into like, you don't have as many sales as you want. Here's how you can audit it and fix it. Um, or like the personal brand series. So we get really in depth, and I also interview other experts in the marketing space on things like Facebook ads, podcasting, YouTube, like all of the things. So definitely go check that out too.
Oh, Amazing. Awesome. I really loved having you here today. And I feel like this was like such good conversation with so many takeaways in ways that I didn't expect it to go, also. But like, I just loved the retreat conversation. I loved the whole branding conversation and really like diving into creating the experiences online and offline. And I just think that this was absolutely so powerful. So I really appreciate you taking the time to listen or to come and talk with us today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I feel like you have done so many cool things in your business too. And I just think it's so fun to like have conversations with people who've
Mhm.
done similar things. I think we have similar stories. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this. So thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was also awesome to be like, yes, this is exactly what I experienced in the social media world.
It's nice to know you're not alone for sure.
Yes. Yes, for sure. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, that conversation was absolutely incredible, and there's so many key takeaways. I actually like had a hard time picking a few to share with you. So I'm gonna go through the ones that I like came top of mind, but I swear there's so much more to go. Okay, so the top one was creating an iconic brand. One, I love the idea of just like creating an iconic brand. Who doesn't want an iconic brand? But really, it comes down to getting really clear on your messaging, which sometimes people don't want to do because it's really pinpointing what you want to say, and sometimes that can be hard, especially when you're looking at your own business. But it is really important to get really clear on your own messaging and your why and the transformation. And look, why should they care? I loved how she brought that up as why should they care? Because our business is really solely about how we can help our audience. And I think that really is probably the key thing that you can take away from this conversation, but implement into your business. Why does your audience care about whatever it is you're creating and giving to them or providing for them or selling to them or what service you're offering? They need to see themselves in your brand. And for them to do that, you need to really curate your messaging to align with that so that they can feel the transformation for themselves. And you have to be able to talk about it in multiple different ways. As much as we think, well, I've already posted about that, isn't that going to get boring? No, sometimes people don't see your post. A lot of the times, people don't see your post because of the algorithm. But also, we want to make sure that we are constantly giving them different reasons why they should like work with you, right? So if they're looking at creating an event, I need to tell you why you need to create an event, how it's going to support your business, what are the logistics behind it, what are some of the things that it can come from it in the long run, how can you sell from an event. Like you need to really be able to tell them all the different details so that they understand why. Some people are going to be like, yeah, I love her, I'm just going to sign up. And then there's some people who really want to know the ins and outs and want to know what other people went through when they went to your workshop or training or whatever it happens to be. So that is really the key part of creating an iconic brand is really figuring out what it is that your audience wants to hear from you, how you support them, why they should care, and then sharing it with them over and over and over again. I loved the social media talk. It was so much fun to hear from another social media agency about the same things that I deal with all the time with my clients and the algorithm and what's working and what's not working. And we hear from so many specialists on Instagram and social media where they say you need to do this, this, and this to be successful. And this is the only way you're going to do it. It really doesn't work that way. You really have to look at what you are doing on social media. How's your audience engaging with it? Are they enjoying it? Is there certain things they like more than others? Can you provide more of that content? Like she had mentioned that one of her clients does really well with face to camera video. That never worked for me. I didn't enjoy it. Maybe that's probably why. But also, it just wasn't, it did not get the engagement. What I love doing was creating the fun videos with fashion and style and transitions. And to be honest with you, those always did better for me. And then now I've started dabbling in carousels, right? Like carousels have been doing pretty well. Like they're fantastic for getting people to really understand more information on you. So when it comes to the social media aspect, don't think that this person's right and that's the only way to do it. Look at what is going on with your own social media. What do you like? What is your audience like? What are they like binging in terms of your content? And can you provide them more of that? And then don't look at the numbers because the numbers doesn't really equate to sales and growth, right? Like just because your numbers may look not up to your par on social media doesn't mean that you're not getting DM engagement. And DM engagement is honestly worth so much more in terms of like conversion than seeing numbers on your reels go up. So don't get discouraged by that. I also really love the idea of storytelling. And it's not storytelling in the sense like I'm going to sit here and tell you a full story. It is storytelling in the sense that this is what happened with me. Here's why it was so successful. This is why it should be beneficial for you. And here's why you need to listen more. Like, really pull people in and explain why. They want to be able to hear a little bit more of your personal experience because they can relate to that. They don't relate to just buy my product. They want to know why your product made a big difference in your life or in your client's life or the transformation they went through. Storytelling is huge and it's going to continue to be huge because it's just relatable and it gets people to really like fall in love with who you are a little bit more versus that hard sale. People can tell when there's a hard sale. So that's one thing. Another thing I thought about. I love the collaboration piece. I think I've said this multiple times, but collaboration has really been really, really impactful in terms of growth for myself as an event planner in the early stages of my business, or when I rebuilt it, or even when it came to the clients that I ended up getting for when I first opened up my social media agency. A lot of it was based on the collaborations we had done previously. So really look at the collaborations of people that you can work with or have worked with and see how we can support each other. Because if we're supporting each other and growing together, that is so much faster than if we're doing it on our own. And then lastly, I loved the talk about the retreats. I'm so interested in retreats and I loved hearing about how Jodie created her retreat, but also some of the things like the key takeaways from it. Like the biggest one for me was to create an experience. When I host events, it is the exact same thing. You want to think about the beginning and end and the journey that the client goes through. And the only thing that's going to make a big impact in them and their business is if they can feel the experience and the energy from beginning to end. So we want to infuse that into every single thing that we do. It's kind of like figuring out what your why is and then infusing that all the way through because that's going to help with your marketing. That's going to help with sales for future retreats. It's going to help with like even just them saying, look, I went to this retreat. It was amazing. You should definitely go check it out. It's great for your referrals. So just really think about the experience of it. And I don't know, there was so many more takeaways that came from this episode, but those are the ones that were top of mind for me. And I just really wanted to share them with you. So I hope you liked this episode. And if you did, please, please, please save it and then share it. Tag me at Jen Kinal. I'd love to hear what you thought of it. I'd love to hear what you'd like to see more of. This podcast is created, one, because I love sharing what entrepreneurs are doing, but also because it is so powerful to create something for what you guys can learn from and grow from. So I cannot wait to keep creating and to talk a little bit more of this on Instagram with you because that's what this is all about. If today's conversation inspired you, do not miss the Be Bold Conference 2025 at the Whitewood Barn on October 7th. This is about surrounding yourself with bold, ambitious women in business who really do get you, support you, and help you grow. I want you to learn from top speakers, get actionable strategies, and walk away with a game plan designed to help your business grow and align with your vision. So grab your ticket today. I really want to say thank you so much to Jodie for sharing her expertise and to all of you for listening. Until next time, stay bold and build a brand that truly stands out.